That is a big GT counter there.
James trying to mull how he's going to get out of this JIT.
And what do we have there?
An S champion.
Boom. Unfortunately, colorless.
Yep.
So the GT can still take out the champ. Gaia's Cradle, one of my favorite cards in Magic's long storied history.
Just oozing out James's graveyard. Jacob it looks like he just drew a plow.
A Ornithopter takes the time to hop in front of the Scrib Ranger. Where he has to reduce.
He has to pump it. No, he has to pump up his guy because of the S champions in play.
Oh yeah, it's a 2/4 Ornithopter.
Right. Oozing it. Ooze the man. Ooze the boss. So Jacob passes. His hand appears to be a Savannah, a Forest, and a Plow.
I think what James needs, perhaps, is maybe running Tezzerets.
Well, Tezzeret gives him a variety of running draws. So, yeah, Tezzeret is where we need to be here. What's really nice, I really believe, you know, as far as American cities go, Los Angeles has just one of the best legacy scenes that there is. I mean, they have local tournaments regularly that are getting 40, 50 people to show up.
That's awesome.
And the community also actually, like, it's not just a bunch of people like stoneblading. They actually own all the weirdo cards and build the sort of the decks that give legacy its charm. And so covering tournaments here is always, you know, you're likely to see a lot more Belcher and a lot more, you know, 42 lands and a lot more Enchantress and those kind of decks, I believe, here than in a lot of other places.
Okay, James trying to find some sort of out to this problematic sprite.
Yep.
And none to be found. He scoops them on up
right
to the sideboards. James looking for answers. Sometimes you have the occasion, depending on if they're scared of it, to see Perish in the sideboard of Affinity. This deck does not have Perish. It does have some Dismembers, which could be useful, though. And we were talking about Tezzeret being a card that he could use to break through that trap, or break through that kind of stalled attack position. I could see Tezzeret coming in as well, but you have to be cautious not to take out too much stuff to fit things in.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. From what I've understood, talking to them, it sounds like Tezzeret is more for just control matchups.
Right.
Games you expect to go long. It's not nearly as good in matchups where your opponent might be able to actually attack you and test it. So I would be surprised if the Tezzerets came in, but I'm not sure. I'm positive the Dismembers will come in. They're basically just for any sort of creature deck.
Absolutely. Well, the reason I kind of like the Tezzerets here is if I don't know how the game played out in the beginning part of the game. We were not able to see it. Neither of us were able to see it. But clearly the game stalled out. Was it just because a quick Umezawa's GT got on the table and perhaps Swords to Plowshares held off maybe James's early creatures? Tezzeret's a way to play for a long game. He does not want a long game, obviously.
Right.
But it is a method to be in that position to be able to fight with that long game.
And from Jacob's sideboard, he has something, you know, a lot of these decks, a pretty popular mode is to have some Enlightened Tutors and then some Bullets. He doesn't really have any Bullets here. He does have 2 copies of Path to Exile, which are
it's a good card.
Better than Swords to Plowshares here. And that looks to basically be it. Also, James's deck, he said, is actually supposed to have one copy of Underground Sea.
Okay.
He could not find before the tournament. So he said, should I get Dark Slick Shores? Should I play Dark Slick Shores or Wasteland? And he's like, I didn't want to seem poor, so I put the Wasteland in instead. So he's got one Wasteland in his deck.
I remember we were sitting next. I was sitting next to him when he was building a deck. I played against him with a couple of my fun decks, and he basically walloped me every game.
Yeah.
There was one game that I won with my fun deck, but it was a lucky one.
It is like I think actually there are some merits to playing Dark Slick Shore over Underground Sea, as weird as that sounds, because like how often do you need your fourth land to come into play untapped? Very rare. And Lord of Atlantis is an actual card.
Yeah.
So it actually, I'm not saying for sure, but there is an argument for actually playing the Dark Slick Shore over the Underground Sea.
That's funny.
Although you would probably still be better served with Underground River, if that was your consideration. Because sometimes you actually want to go fourth, like actually going fourth land. Tezzeret is a thing sometimes. So
what do you think about? I'm struggling to remember the name of it right now. Darkwater, the Odyssey block Filterland.
Oh well, you don't always naturally have. You don't actually naturally have blue or black mana all the time.
I think you can put. I think you can put colorless into it.
Oh, you can?
I'm pretty sure. It's a very marginal land, but
Sure, yeah.
you know, so.
I mean, this deck does actually get some one landers sometimes, so maybe that's another thing too.
That's fair. One land is very real.
Yeah, yeah. He only has 15 lands in his deck, so I think that's probably too risky.
15 land is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Well, he has 4 drums and 4 Mox Opal, so he's got mana to spare.
And thought casts as well
Yeah.
to push through.
And many of his cards cost 0, so.
Darkwater Catacombs, yeah, that would be colorless to start it off.
So his mana base is 4 Vault, 4 Seat, 2 Ancient Tombs, 4 Darksteel Citadel, and 1 Wasteland.
Another good reason not to do a card like the Odyssey Filterlands is sometimes you want to spend only 1 mana at a time, and it requires you to spend
Right.
2 at a time. Waiting for the shuffle ups.
Yeah.
The main deck of Jacob Kory's, like all Maverick decks, has a pretty large amount of kind of hateful cards.
Yeah, my understanding is that this deck was kind of first popularized in the European Legacy scene and put up a bunch of big finishes over there in sort of their, their equivalent of Star City Opens, like their larger but not Grand Prix level tournaments.
Right.
And then it sort of became a thing over here.
Like all of these hateful cards, like main deck Kasali Pride Mage is just a part of how the deck works, but it has great utility against a deck like Affinity, which sometimes has only one particularly reasonable threat going on.
Yeah.
Whether that's a Cranial Plating or a Mirror Enforcer.
Right. Also, while we're shuffling, I'm getting the opportunity to bird Adrian Sullivan's modern match on Moto here, where he appears to be hard casting.
Overwhelming Stampede.
Yeah, we're casting Overwhelming Stampede.
I made the grave error of starting a match against somebody for fun, and while we were on our waiting for things to get fixed, and our awesome director has fixed it way faster than I thought we were going to be fixed. So I just wanted to make sure that my opponent didn't have me just disconnect on him. So we're just going to kill him now and then be good. And the players have finished their shuffle ups. Looks like keep. First turn. That's not an exciting draw for Affinity playing a single Seat of Synod and saying go. Green Sun Zenith from Jacob getting the Dryad Arbor that now is a very common play in Legacy.
Yep. No longer a common play in Modern.
Very sad.
Rest in peace. So we have a turn 2 Master of Ethereum off of Ancient Tome.
The Ancient Tomb is a card that I love seeing play.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen it in anything other than a deck like Affinity or certain kinds of combo decks, but it's one of my favorite cards in Magic, actually.
Yeah.
Only a 2/2 Master. Not that damage is going to be an issue for Jacob Kory.
It's not going to get bolted, so you might as well just... So Stoneforge.
Jite once again?
Yep.
Jite.
Players, this is a final call if you're
So I think Jacob has Path in his hand. I'm surprised he didn't Path right away. Just because you're probably going to Path that thing at some point anyway. And letting James go to his turn with as many artifacts as possible can mean his Thoughtcasts and Frogmites are potentially more explosive. So if there was actually a Path in his hand, I'm surprised he didn't pull the trigger right there.
It's one of those things that's sort of like a card like Wild Mongrel or Aquamoeba is actually a mana source.
Right.
And Master of Ethereum in this deck is a mana source.
Yep.
And there we see one example of that. Only 1 mana for Thoughtcast.
This is going to be Tezzeret, I think.
Tez. In a deck with artifact lands, Tezzeret's ultimate ability is so much more scary.
Yeah, I was actually, while we were down, I was actually birding James's match against a Goblin's opponent, where the board got gummed up, and James just went Tezzeret, like, +1, ultimate it, for 12, play another Tezzeret, kill you next turn.
Yep.
The life sheet, the life sheets were both 20/20 when it happened. It was just over instantly.
This is one of the reasons why I potentially mentioned Tezzeret as a card if you expect that the game could get gummed up. In like that last game we saw Jacob basically winning on the back of a very slow sprite.
Yeah, and there's the Path. So if we were committed to doing that anyway, we probably should have started there, but so it goes.
Untap. Jite is not quite able to get on an attacker yet.
Well, he has a land. He can get it going this turn.
But he can't get it attacking. It'll cost him 4 mana either way.
Yeah, you can put the Jit on the Stoneforge.
Oh yeah, he can cast and put it on the Stoneforge. My bad.
Right.
I'm so used to tapping the Stoneforge to put it into play. Kasali Pride Mage.
Yeah, Jit wouldn't have been that exciting this turn. Jit plus attack with Stoneforge is like trades with Frogmite. The counters don't really, he gets to kill the Frogmite and have a counter. It's not a great use of his turn.
Dryad Arbor comes in for 2, enhanced by Exalted from a Kasali Pride Mage.
Wow. And he's going to blow up the Frogmite.
Tezzeret reduces.
That to me it's a curious use of the turn because I think James is happy to +1 Tezzeret anyway. He's not in a big rush, so committing your whole turn to kind of just knock down Tezzeret a little bit. It does potentially set him up to actually get it off the table for realsies next turn. So.
And another plus. We see a Frogmite. Is that an Etched Oracle?
I think that's a champ.
Or Ex-Champion, I mean. I always want to say Etched Oracle, but that is a very different Etched.
Yes. Yeah, he's going to go get the champ. And the champ is great preemptive protection against Jit among, other utility it has.
so easy for the etched champion to have protection from colors. It's pretty much trivial in Legacy.
Yeah.
Sadly, that does give him protection from Tezzeret.
I think James will live.
Green Suns for 2.
I mean, he has another Pride Mage he can go get, which I assume really the only thing worth committing 3 mana to. Oh no, we're Scrib Rangering. Okay.
Scrib Ranger with Dryad Arbor is an awesome mana engine.
He also needs to get a flyer to get his JIT going because he can't get through on the ground anymore.
If Jacob has not laid a land, what he can do is he can return one of his forests to his hand to untap the Dryad Arbor and essentially get 2 extra mana from a turn that he wouldn't have otherwise had it. As we see right there.
He also has an Eternal Witness in his hand, which he can use to loop a Pride Mage. I'm going to give Tezzeret another spin.
Yep. Jacob says go with some mana open. I can't make out what he has in his hand there.
I think he has at least one more champ.
Froggy. Frogmite. James trying to decide what else he might want to attempt on the board. In comes Etched Champion for 2. Another champ.
And another champ.
And another champ. And a frog.
So we're probably going to get the JIT in here.
Okay, GT is on the table. There's a flyer here. This is the same situation we saw before with Scrib Ranger and a Umezawa's GT facing off against a board that does not include much in the air.
Unfortunately, if he attacks here, I mean, this attack's fine, obviously, because it's close to a free roll because of Scrib Ranger's ability. He might just die. Oh, we have Witness for Path, so he's going to kill the Ornithopter, I guess? And then be able to send.
Eternal Witness is not Snapcaster, so the recast of that path leaves it in the yard. In comes the little Scrib Ranger, knocking down Tez.
Yeah, he's keeping Tezzeret off ultimate for at least one more turn. But he is under significant pressure.
Considering an attack with Pest and 3 Etched Champions, that would hit Jacob for 9. If you wanted to, you could return a forest to his hand to untap the Scrib, block the Pestermite, and kill it and get a couple more counters.
Yeah, I think that...
Attack for just 6 without coming in with the Pestermite gives Jacob a little bit more time, but also saves the ability for the GT to come up a little bit more. GT, as always, making kind of a monkey wrench of combat math. GT kills one of the Etched Champions.
I'm surprised he wouldn't spin Tezzeret.
Get some information.
Yeah, I mean, a Master of Ethereum is a pretty big draw here. Or a cranial plating.
The question he's asking himself is, does he march the Signal Pest into the Scrib Ranger?
It seems too bad when he's going to get 2 more counters off the chip. I mean,
wow. Untap. Block. Your 0-1.
yeah, I don't know what that was all about.
Cranial
He
plating
just
right
threw a
there.
Plating would have just killed him, or come close to killing him. Now he's just going to lose both his champions.
Cranial plating. Yet a little bit more in the way of clock. In comes the Scrib Ranger. 4 counters on Umezawa's Jite. Untaps it, relays the forest that he picked up. Oh, okay, I've got somebody I'm rooting for now. That is a pretty one there. Black bordered Sylvan Library. Tezzeret finds a cranial plating. Might be late
or a
now.
Master of Ethereum.
Goes for the Master. Casting the Master can kind of summon the Umezawa's Jite to kill off the champs, but then the plating can move to any old creature.
We are ready to go. Please come over to the side events, Shivan Dragon banners. Once again,
Which I guess is just a frogmite at this point.
Yeah. Number 4. Please report to the Shivan Dragon banners where your judge will meet you.
Frog and go. Sylvan. Let's see a fetch land, a Maze of Ith. Wow, and another Scrib Ranger.
Maze of Ith is also a huge deal here just for
I like the Maze of Ith, and I also like this. He saw 2 cards he liked, he paid 4.
Yeah.
There we go. That's what you need to do. Sylvan Library is good for paying 4. Green Sun Zenith for 1 is one of his cards he used.
And James has pretty resigned body language at this point. I've seen this before. Not that I blame him because he's in a real bad spot.
That critical turn you mentioned earlier was with the Tezzeret, where a pre-attack activation of the Tezzeret could have shown him a cranial plating. And then the other turn before that, where I mentioned the does he want to attack into the Scrib? Did he know that the Scrib could untap and block there? I don't think he did. It just seems like it set him up for a situation where a lot of counters on the Umezawa's Jite. Maze of Ith, there we go. Untap.
And he lost his Tezzeret in combat to the 2 exhaust, and there's a concession.
Green-White Maverick. Taking down a...
The robots.
Affinity.
It's sort of nice now that, it's been so long since, Affinity's horrible reign over Standard a decade ago that now it's just sort of another fondly remembered legacy deck.
It's funny because you know how you talked before about whether you play angles or not.
Yeah.
You know, and Wes Wise was on commentating yesterday with us for a little bit. Wes Wise has a column this week, his first premium column, basically about the Magic Online economy and doing some trading on there.
Yep.
But he said that he likes to play the best deck. Well, Affinity was a best deck for a while. One of the only quote-unquote best decks that I've ever actually picked up and played a tournament. I played Affinity at Regionals one year, and I feel very happy with that choice.
Yeah, I mean, I always am, but that was definitely a time where I was way too stubborn. That deck was so much better than every other deck that it was silly not to.
Yeah.
I was playing, I played, the one Mirrodin Block Grand Prix I played in was Grand Prix in New Jersey, however long